Yo, what's up? This is Elderstare, and welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things spooky, scary, and have a little bit of fun. Today on the channel, we're going to be talking about the long-awaited 28 Years Later. That's right, this thing has just slammed its way into the box office, and I am so excited to talk about it with you guys. There has been straight-up generational hype built up around this thing. It has been 2 decades since 28 Days Later completely reinvented the zombie genre. With a name and a weight like what we have experienced with this title right here, is it even possible for it to live up to the expectations? 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later are films that have found themselves nestled into the hearts of zombie fans. If you're a fan of the subgenre, then you absolutely have these pretty close to the top of your favorite movie of all times lists. And there's reason for that. I mean, even though the director themselves doesn't really consider these to be zombie movies because they are a little bit different than our classic zombies, these films took zombies from being the slow, walking around, eating brains types of zombies to the fast, agile, running as fast as they can, and just being violent and vicious zombies. The first 2 films really put a spin on the whole culture, that's for sure. But 28 years after the initial outbreak, I mean, this thing has to be a little bit different than those other ones, right? 28 Years Later is a 2025 post-apocalyptic zombie horror film, and it serves as the very long-awaited and highly anticipated 3rd entry into the 28 Days, Weeks, Years franchise. This film marks the return of Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, and cinematographer Anthony Mantle to the series, all of whom worked on the original first film. We've even got Cillian Murphy serving as an executive producer here. It's like the perfect little zombie welcome home party. The plot for the film states that it's been almost 3 decades since the rage virus escaped from a biological weapons laboratory. 28 years to be exact. Still living in a ruthlessly enforced quarantine, small communities have found ways to exist amid the infected. One such group of survivors lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single heavily defended causeway. When a young boy decides to venture into the dark heart of the mainland on a mission to save his mother, he soon discovers a nasty mutation that is spread throughout the ranks of the infected. With the original writer and director coming back from the first film, does that mean that this one will have an even better chance at holding up than maybe even the second one did? And don't get me wrong, 28 Weeks Later is one that people love and hold to a very high standard in their hearts. But again, I must ask, with this film taking place so much further down the line, what will be different here? What kind of changes and developments could we see added to the lore over time in this world? Going into this film, I had questions like, would the entire world be eclipsed in a zombie apocalypse by this point? What percentage of the globe is even still hanging around? How have the zombies managed to linger for this long when they were already starting to die of starvation so early in the series? How have they prolonged their existence? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to say that 28 Years Later answers all of these questions and more. Just getting as much spoiler-free stuff out of the way as I can, I personally really enjoyed this movie. It is on a different vibe than the other movies, but I personally like that about it. The identity of the series is absolutely there in the DNA. It's mostly there in the cinematography, but you can really just feel it throughout the whole thing. The movie is at times very bleak, but it is also definitely trying to get a message across the way that the originals did. And I personally just really enjoyed it. I really had a good time with this movie. That's about all I can say without spoiling anything, so without further ado, let's just jump into it, shall we? The film begins in Scotland, showing us the very events that drove the beautiful area into an apocalyptic dead zone. We see a room full of young children as they fearfully watch an episode of Teletubbies. From the hall outside, adults are heard muttering and panicking, though you can't discern what it is that they're saying. As an alarm sounds out through the air, the adults lock the children inside, instructing them not to open the door or move a muscle. Among these extremely terrified children is a little blonde-haired boy named Jimmy. And Jimmy here is unfortunately not up for the task his aunties have laid out for him. No, he decides to open the doors at the very first sound that he hears, hoping that it's his dad coming in to save him. But in reality, he just pops that door open like it's the lid on a can of tuna, while poor little Jimmy looks on in horror at the mistake that he's made. The boy flees the room as he makes his way through the house, witnessing as everyone inside are brutally and violently infected with the rage virus. Jimmy arrives at the town's local church to find his father, the local priest, having completely lost his mind. Jimmy begs his father for help, pleading with him to recognize what's happened to his mother back at home. But his father claims that this is all a good thing and just a piece of the rapture. He gives Jimmy his golden rosary and sends the boy on his way, opening his arms and very enthusiastically accepting the zombies in. Yeah, so right out the gate, they are carrying us through with franchise vibes, aren't they? The prologue for this movie is gritty, it is nasty, it is violent, and it is disgusting, man. They really just put it all front and center, throwing it at you so that you knew exactly what to experience going into this thing. As I stated a bit ago, the cinematography is all super jump cutty and all over the place, really spastic, and honestly, it's really cool looking. It kind of makes this feel like a 2000s movie, but we'll talk more about that as we get into it more. Now that we've set up and established the initial outbreak in Scotland here, let's fast forward those some 28 years later and find out where this film is going to be taking place. Text on screen informs us that over the past 3 decades, the rage virus has spread its way throughout the UK and contaminated all but few of the land's inhabitants. Those last few groups of people have formed their own little civilizations and developed them in quarantine over time. Now, 27 years after the events of the opening in the last 2 films, we pick up with a 12-year-old boy named Spike as he awakes in his small village community and prepares for his first time out onto the mainland. See, Spike's village exists on a secluded island that's only connected to the mainland through a long causeway trailing through the water. We're informed that traversal is only possible at low tide, and that a person's first time to the mainland is one draped in ceremonial and almost religious exuberance. Spike is met in the kitchen by his father Jamie, who gifts the boy a bit of bacon, both as a gift as well as fuel for their big trip today. Hearing a thud from upstairs, the two rush to check on Isla, who from the looks of it is suffering from some sort of extremely painful ailment, and even worse, the poor thing is completely losing her mind altogether. She can't tell you where she is, who she's talking to, or really hold a memory longer than a moment. Upon being reminded that today's Spike's big day, she erupts into a fit of rage and berates Jamie for even thinking of taking him out there. The two boys head back downstairs where they're greeted by a local island elder and an archery combat instructor named Sam, who comes bearing a gift for Spike. He's restrung his bow for him and, unlike the boy's mother, shows great enthusiasm for the boy to take his journey. In fact, it seems like everyone else in the whole island is pretty stoked for this kid. As Spike and his father approach the town's gates, they're showered in praise and signs of good luck. At the gate, they're met by a member of the town's leadership council who informs them of the rules for this coming-of-age expedition. Many have taken the path before them and many have failed to return. From here, they're permitted to leave, and if they do, they will be permitted to come back. However, if they don't make it back, they will not send people out looking for them. This is thought to be certain death, and the risk is on the duo alone. They accept these terms and head off down the causeway to begin their adventure into the zombie apocalypse. Arriving to the mainlands, we get some really nice and interesting dialogue between the two as the father does his best to tenderly guide his son through this dangerous new world. He escorts him across the land and shows him the fields their village reaps timber for fuel from. We even witness a massive stampede of deer across the land in an outstanding visual. Just off from the fields, we spot our first infected. It's a weird-looking, super bloated guy crawling around sucking worms from the ground. Jamie instructs Spike to draw and take aim at the creature, telling him that the time has come for him to claim his first kill. He does so, drops the creature, and as predicted, this draws a few more to their location. After dealing with the small group, the duo carry on to a nearby neighborhood to scavenge for some supplies. Inside of a small house, they find a man strung up by his ankles with a bag over his head and the name Jimmy carved into his back. Jamie instructs Spike to take this one out as it'll harden up the boy, but he's still shaken and can't do it, leading to Jamie having to kill the creature to keep them safe. They don't find much else in the house, but they do find a frisbee. Spike has no idea what that is, but Jamie assures him that he's gonna love it. Progressing deeper into the mainland, they now encounter some dead animals that seem to have been ripped to shreds by something in the wild. And when I say something, I truly mean something different here. Spike notices the head of the animal stashed high up in a tree, and Jamie immediately recognizes this as a sign of big trouble. The only thing that could pull the head off of an animal like that would be an alpha. Horrified at this discovery, the two make a break for it and head back to the island. Unfortunately for them, as soon as they break the tree line, they're intercepted by a huge pack of zombies led by the big alpha in charge himself. Turning back again now, a chase ensues that brings us all the way back to the house we got the frisbee from, where Jamie holds the creatures back while Spike leads their escape into the attic. Spike tries to help, but the poor kid is shaken so bad he can't land a single hit on the creatures. They do make it up into safety though, and now in the attic, the two hunker down for the night, with the father staying up keeping eyes on the alpha through a hole in the ceiling and the son trying to get a bit of shut-eye. In the night, Jamie wakes Spike and the two discuss a few points of interest that they can spot from their safe space. Jamie notes some lights coming from the shoreline, which he presumes could be quarantine patrol from France, while Spike asks about a fire that he can see raging in the opposite direction from the house. Jamie tells his son that he doesn't know what exactly that fire is, but that he can promise it's not another village or anything else good. The two doze off a bit, but are jolted awake when another deer stampede causes the foundation of the safe house to crumble, and they're forced back to the streets. Knowing infected would soon be arriving, they make a break for it and attempt once again to head home. To be honest, this goes surprisingly surprisingly well. They make it all the way to the causeway, and even have just enough time of low tide to make the trek. The plan doesn't conclude flawlessly, of course, as the Alpha catches their trail and books it like Tyreek Hill towards their location. A race ensues, but Jamie alerts the village guards and they're able to reach the rescue just in time. Archers lend them a hand, and after about 5 arrows and a flaming stake to the heart, the Alpha goes down behind them. Okay, so talk about a coming of age ritual, right? Man, what a first day on the mainland. It seems like a pretty intense and dangerous birthday tradition, doesn't it? But it's probably pretty necessary for people that exist inside of this world. Just through this little venture out into the world, we do see some interesting things going on with the zombies out here. We've got these weird little bloated zombies crawling around and eating worms out of the dirt. How do you think they ended up like that? We'll see these guys again before the movie's over, but like, this seems to be a specific kind of zombie. How did they end up looking all weird and bloated like this? Another kind of zombie that we see here are the Alphas, and man, those things are crazy. What about the zombie virus do you think causes these people to get huge, grow really tall, and be like massive monster juggernauts, you know what I'm saying? They say in the film that for some people, the virus actually triggers them and jumps up like steroids, if you can believe such a thing. But what does that mean, and how does that happen? Maybe we'll get some more answers as we go down the franchise a little bit more. There are movies supposed to be following up after this one, so maybe those will have answers to some of these questions in them. 28 years have passed, so it only makes sense that there'd be a little bit of evolution within these creatures. It's also interesting to note the other kinds of human activities that are going on around them while they're on this journey. They see the French quarantine patrol, and they also see that fire in the distance. Now, the French quarantine patrol I find especially interesting because these guys are what? Just like floating around in boats out there looking for zombies to kill? That sounds insane to me, but like probably necessary, I guess. In a world like this where they've had this quarantine zone with straight up zombies running around on it for so long, they probably want to keep that tampered down as much as possible. That sounds pretty insane. And the fires that Spike was seeing, I wonder what's going on out there. I mean, that has to be something, right? The relationship shown so far between Spike and his father is really cool. I like how they show the two of them bonding. You can tell that Jamie really cares for his son Spike and that he's having a good time showing him this new world. Or, well, I guess it was their old world, wasn't it? It's a new world for Spike though. He's definitely never seen anything besides this cozy little island, and it's a dangerous place out there, so he's got to keep his wits about him. It's a wild little post-apocalyptic bonding experience, if you can think of it such a way. Back on the island, a massive party is thrown in honor of Spike's first expedition, and from the looks of it, every single member of the island community is there getting wasted and having fun. Well, everyone except for the boy's mother, unfortunately. She's back at home, tripping out while Sam keeps an eye on her. At the town bar, all eyes are on Jamie as he drunkenly spins a Fisherman's Tale version of the events we just witnessed. In Jamie's version, Spike killed all of those infected himself without a flinch, and you know what? Screw it, why not throw in there that the kid's killed an alpha by himself? The boy's a certified giant slayer. Spike rejects this version of things, and though he tries his best to enjoy himself, the 12-year-old just can't handle all of the adult activities. And feeling scared, goes looking for his father. When he finds him, Jamie is caught in a back alley hooking up with another woman. Spike is floored by this, and he retreats home to relieve Sam of his duties and spend some time with his mother. She's in a great deal of pain, and Spike wants more than anything to free her from that burden. Ooh, okay, so why you gotta go and be a sleaze, Jamie? That's just not cool, man. Spike tells Sam what really happened out there on the mainlands and asks him about the distant fire. Sam informs him that the fire comes from a man named Dr. Kelson. The man was a doctor before the whole rage virus thing and now lives in seclusion, still alive somewhere out there. The next day, Jamie stumbles in hungover and Spike lets his father have it. He confronts his dad with the knowledge of Dr. Kelson as well as his affair and asks him if he just wants his mother to die. Jamie snaps and strikes his child before elaborating and telling him the only time he'd encountered the mad doctor. He found that the man was completely insane and spends his days stacking rotten bodies into rows by the hundreds on his property. Spike runs upstairs and demands his father leave him and his mother alone, even going to the length of pulling a knife on him for it. Jamie disarms the child and then returns the blade to him before exiting his home in shame. With his perspective shifted and a new goal set, Spike devises a plan to get his mother the help that she needs. First, he lights a supply shed on fire to use as a distraction for the guards of the gate. Next, he sneaks him and his extremely delirious mother out into the mainland. And lastly, the duo set back out, now on the search for a cure to Isla's mysterious illness. So they really cranked Jamie being a tool up to 11 here, didn't they? What was going on with that? Everything was going so well. They had such a nice relationship. Why do you have to go and turn into such a jerk? That is crazy. Now little Spike is gonna need to step step it up if he wants to be able to contend out here in the mainland, taking care of his mom and all that. He just had his first exploration of this place a few hours ago, and it didn't exactly go great, you know what I'm saying? At the end of their first day, they take reprieve at a dilapidated building where they bond a little bit and make some funny faces at each other before Spike tells his mom to get some rest and opts to stay up and on guard throughout the night. This almost turns out to be a fatal mistake as Spike quickly drifts off to sleep and another one of those weird bloated worm suckers crawls in and starts sucking on his shoelaces. The zombie leans in and almost gets the best meal of its unnatural life, but Isla turns the dog on real quick and decimates the creature. When the two wake up the next day, she has no memory of this even happening though. Elsewhere on the mainland, a squad of heavily armed soldiers are pursued by a herd of zombies into an underground tunnel. They defend themselves the best that they can, but one by one, they fall victim to the vicious, raged-out infected. Deep within the tunnels, they encounter an alpha who absolutely destroys their little team. The massive creature even rips the head off of one and uses it as a flail to attack the others with. One lone survivor escapes through the back, and from here, we meet back up with the family. Spike and Isla are walking through a beautiful field when the mother begins slipping again and starts to speak to her son as if he was her father, reminiscing a time when she saw an iron angel standing tall in the fields. Spike doesn't know what she's talking about here, but he lets her have her moment anyway. At least he attempts to, until a horde of zombies rise from the field and begin chasing them to a nearby restaurant. Inside, the building is filled with a thick, noxious gas that seems to pool up at higher elevations into the air. And while Spike fires arrows into the pursuers, Isla is not looking too good dealing with this obstacle. Just when their back's against the wall, a hatch is open leading to the roof, and the soldier from earlier fires a few shots inside, igniting the smoke and incinerating the zombies. Spike and Isla avoid this fate by hitting the deck and crawling to safety. The new kid introduces himself to the group as a Swedish NATO soldier named Eric. Eric only joined the Swedish Navy as a way to prove a point to a friend of his for being a lazy delivery driver. He, feeling he carried a greater purpose, decided to join the military to prove this point to his friend. Now that he's found himself on the quarantined island with no hopes of ever being allowed back home, he wishes he had just sat down and been a delivery driver himself. Okay, so this guy Eric is a really funny character, but he also serves as a great tool of exposition here. Because he comes from outside of the UK and he's actually a member of the Navy, he comes from a place that is untouched by the virus so far. This offers some great contrast where he gets to interact with the characters here who have been completely cut off for their entire lives while he's been living in a totally modern world like the ones that me and you are used to. It's just a crazy funny situation that we got here. There's a big social disconnect going on here where Spike and Eric just cannot relate with each other on absolutely anything. Eric spends most of the time trying to get one up on and brag to Spike, but he just doesn't really understand, get it, or care about anything that this dude is talking about. He's talking about delivery drivers and social medias and girlfriends and stuff like that, and Spike is just like, dude, what? The kid is basically from a third world country. It is absolutely insane. Continuing on with their journey, they make it to a derailed train where Isla finds, and I kid you not here, an infected woman giving birth. I don't know if it's Isla's insanity or her motherly instincts that kick in, but she runs over and, again, I kid you not here, helps the woman to give birth to the baby by holding her hands for support, removing the baby from her womb, cutting the umbilical cord, and even washing off the baby. This is absolutely too much for Eric to handle, and he annihilates the infected mother and demands they do something about the presumed infected baby. But the mother and son don't believe the baby to be infected at all, actually. Eric takes aim at the two of them, thinking that he's gotta do this to survive. But on cue, he gets lifted into the air and obliterated off screen by an alpha. Hopping into the train car wielding Eric's head and spine as a flail, the alpha pursues the group. He chases them balls out in an open field where he's pacified by none other than Dr. Kelson using his morphine dart blower. Dr. Kelson is a very eccentric and very intelligent British man who makes an immediately interesting first impression by humanizing the alpha, calling him Samson, and collecting Eric's head from the monstrous creature before escorting the group to his homestead. Here he covers himself in iodine line as a way to keep the virus away, and we see that he's built a physical memento mori as a sort of bone temple. Every bone, every skull belonged to someone, and he's dragged all of the remains here as a reminder of that and a memorial to death as a whole. He demonstrates this by incinerating Eric's body and allowing Spike to position his skull on the bone temple pillar. This is a nice gesture, I think, but it's not why they came here to see him. Spike informs Kelson that his mother is very ill and needs his help. The doctor does his best, giving her a full examination, but the results are not what anyone wanted to hear. Isla is dying from the big C word. Spike is floored by this, but Isla insists that she knew all along this was the case. In a moment of clarity, the two share a beautiful bonding experience as they say their goodbyes, and Dr. Kelson takes the pain away. Returning to Spike with the skull of his mother, Spike places this one at the top of the bone tower facing the sunrise. It's also explained to us here by Dr. Kelson that the reason why the baby wasn't born infected was apparently because of like the placenta protecting it inside of the lady's womb. I don't exactly know how that works, but you know what? That's what they told us in the movie. I almost forgot to leave it in here in my review because it's just all so wild of a concept, but you know what? Let's make sure that this is complete and make sure that I put this in here. Sometime later, Spike and Kelson are attacked by another Alpha, and though Spike saves Kelson using one of his darts, Kelson feels overwhelmed being responsible for the boy and the baby, so he tells them that it's time for them to return home. They do, but Spike doesn't decide to stick around. Instead, he leaves the baby at the gates with a note addressed to his father. He tells his father about his mother, Dr. Kelson, and the baby, which he's decided to name Isla after his mother. He tells his dad not to worry and not to come looking for him, as he'd return to the community when he's ready. For now, he plans to exist out in the mainland as a 12-year-old on the run and soak up the dangers of this new outside world. Okay, so here's your obligatory "this is about to get really crazy" warning. Yes, with only minutes left of the film, with the very last scene that we're gonna get here, it's gonna get very, very crazy and honestly kind of humorous. We're going into dark comedy territories here. It is a total vibe switch, and it feels like getting hit with cold water, so here's your obligatory warning, and we'll talk about it a little bit more after you see this. The final scene of the movie shows Spike as he cooks up a big old fish he caught for dinner. Looks great, but he's not going to be able to get a bite as he's being chased away from the camp by a small group of infected. He fends them off the best that he can, but when he arrives at a roadblock, the numbers become overwhelming. Just when it looks like it's too late, we meet a new face. Or maybe not? A blonde man, iced out, wearing a tracksuit and donning a super blingy golden cross around his neck, offers to help the kid. Before he knows it, a whole gang of these blonde tracksuit wearing goofballs come flying out, flipping all over the place, killing the infected. When the job's done, the mysterious man shakes Spike's hand and introduces himself as Jimmy from the beginning of the film. Also presumably the same Jimmy referenced carved into the man's back at the beginning of the film and written in graffiti across town throughout the movie. I think it's right to assume this has to be some kind of weird cult activity, considering these dudes who all look exactly the same are credited as Jimmy Inc., Jemima, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Fox, Jimmy, and Jimmy Snake. I mean, come on, what is actually going on here? Alright, so that's 28 years later. How'd you feel about the movie? How'd you feel about the movie that you've been waiting 2 decades for? I mean, geez. Did you get answers to any questions that you had going into this movie? Let me know in the comments down below how you were feeling about it. Now, I know that 28 years later definitely drummed up a lot more questions than it did answers going into this thing, but that is because they're trying to set up a whole new franchise here moving forwards. As soon as this movie was done filming and done with production, another one was slotted immediately after it, and we should be getting Temple of Bones as early as January of next year. That's right. This is only the beginning for the 28 series. So what do you think that Temple of Bones will be about? Do you think that it'll follow Kessler and be about his little temple that he built we explored at the end of the movie? Do you think that maybe it could be an origin story all about him and what he's been doing for the last 28 years? However you're feeling about it, hit those comments down below and let me know. With multiple films coming down the line, I'm sure that we'll see a follow-up to the whole Jimmy cult thing and find out what's going on with Spike towards the end of this series. It's only a matter of time now, and they're going to be rapid firing these things out, so let's stay tuned and stay aware. Personally, I really enjoyed this film. Even though it was really different than the other ones, I thought that that was cool. As I said at the beginning of this review, each of the 28 series movies are all pretty different from each other. They all carry a different kind of vibe, and they're all about totally different themes in their own right. They just kind of have the same kind of finesse to them. Really, I feel like it boils down to the cinematography and the way that these things are shot. The stylistic approach to them really makes them feel like what they are. The first movie and the second movie are drastically different from each other, and this one, man, taking place 28 years in the future, future, it had to be something different, you know what I mean? There were a couple of things that kind of threw me off in this film, like the whole infected giving birth thing. That was totally a trip. But you know what? I want to know how you guys are feeling about it. Let me know in the comments down below how you're feeling. And if you enjoyed my video today, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. I'm still pretty new over here on YouTube, but I've got hours of awesome horror content over on my channel for you guys to browse. Be sure to take a look at my catalog. You'll probably find some other stuff you enjoy. And if you really like it, be sure to send it over to a friend you think might enjoy it too. I've been Eldritch Terror, and whether your day's been going good or bad today, I hope it gets better.